Welcome back to the Powerful Communication Podcast. This is Colin Kelly from Comsteria with a few thoughts regarding former Dundee University Principal Ian Gillespie and the evidence he gave to Holyrood's Education Committee yesterday. It was a bit of a 3-hour thrashing that he got, and there's all the social media pile on today, lots of media coverage as well. It was a wee bit of a circus, really. I'm not sure that our MSPs are shining examples of competence and accountability themselves. So I'm not quite sure if they're the right people to preside over the questioning of Ian Gillespie in quite the manner that they did. Let's also keep a sense of perspective here. I think the Scottish Parliament has a duty of care to people who appear before it. And I hope that they're supporting Professor Ian Gillespie. I think his well-being is very important, as is anyone who speaks to the Scottish Parliament Committee. And while I'd always want very robust questioning for anyone presiding over failure or anyone in a position of power, especially if they seem a little out of touch and arrogant, I would always put them under the greatest of scrutiny. It is important that we take care of those who are in that position and who stand before or sit before the committees. I saw our First Minister last night openly saying that he thinks that Ian Gillespie should pay the money back that he got when he exited the institution. Unusual to see John Swinney or someone in his position being quite so forthright where such matters are concerned. And if that's the way we're going to do it now, John, I hope that this will be consistently applied. And I look forward to a similar forthright response from you, John, the next time it's one of your own that messes up. So if that's how it's going to be, that's great. But I did see, I would describe it, I suppose, as a sort of sickening hypocrisy and a little bit of a circus yesterday from some of our elected officials. So I hope that they'll reflect on that while they make sure that there's support for Ian Gillespie and anyone else who comes and speaks to them. Really what I wanted to talk about today, though, was this line, this question from Douglas Ross, MSP, who he revels in these big gotcha moments, you know. And this particular question, what are you? You're either corrupt or incompetent. Which is it? And Ian Gillespie said, well, I know I'm not corrupt, so it must be incompetence then. And this is the line that everybody has seized on. First thing to say is that is not, or shouldn't be, an unexpected or particularly clever gotcha moment line of questioning. It's ancient. That's been widely used in almost every industrial tribunal that I've seen. Somebody uses that line. It's been used extensively in the media. It was used in Vietnam. It was used in Watergate. It was used throughout the Reagan and Thatcher eras. Really shouldn't have come as a surprise to anybody facing these sorts of questions. And I wouldn't be patting myself on the back for using that line. Anyway, that line, I guess I must be incompetent. I saw some people last night on LinkedIn sort of hailing this refreshing honesty. And then saying that they were surprised because they didn't think that would be the advice somebody would get in media training. Suggesting that media training wouldn't use such emotive language and somehow, I suppose, would advise against answering that question in such an honest and forthright way. Now, I just want to speak generally here because I don't know Ian Gillespie and I don't know the ins and outs of the situation, and neither really do I want to speak specifically about this individual on LinkedIn. But let me just reply to this suggestion that somehow media training would, I guess, run contrary to the truth or would advise somebody not to use emotive language. My media training would never do that. My media training is about telling the truth. And if we're doing media training and you're not telling me the truth, I'm going to absolutely hammer you. So this suggestion that somehow media training is coaching someone to protect themselves or coaching someone to give like kind of smart-ass evasive answers, no chance. My media training is number one, anticipating what's going to happen. So if I was doing media training, I'm telling you, somebody's going to ask you, corrupt or incompetent, how are you going to answer this? And then supporting you to answer it in a full and accountable, transparent, honest and trustworthy way. My job in media training is to be as tough or tougher than the Scottish Parliament would be. So these questions really shouldn't come as any sort of a surprise, and you need to be 100% honest, and my media training is going to support you and remind you of the importance of that. But it's going to allow you to practice in a safe space, and I guess get your ducks in a row so that you're able to sit in front of them and be completely honest. The second thing is this suggestion that, or this assumption that there's media training at all. Again, I can't speak for this specific case that's in the news today, but in my experience, it's not always media training that influences the answers that these people give. It might well have been legal advice. And I think that needs to be considered as well. If we're going to cast assumptions around about the role of media training, can we also please keep in mind that there might be legal advice involved as well? And the final point I want to make relates to this assumption that when someone says something embarrassing or ugly about themselves, that therefore means they're being honest. Or this suggestion that, well, if somebody's honest about something embarrassing and personal and difficult, well, therefore they must be honest about everything. A few years ago, I was reading a university PhD thesis about the radio presenter Howard Stern. And there is a psychological phenomenon, and it usually involves men, that if they are honest about something personal and ugly, that we then assume that they're honest about everything. So what it says about Howard Stern is he's this radio presenter in America, builds his whole career on being real and authentic, as opposed to the sort of fake smiles of his competitors. Here's this guy, he's really honest, he's not afraid to be grumpy, he'll tell you about his sex life, he talks about what's going on. This guy's so open and honest that he even talks about his small penis. He talks about this tiny part of his anatomy, how much it embarrasses him, how bad he is at lovemaking. My goodness, what refreshing, honest transparency. Therefore, he's being honest about everything else. Well, we know that he's not, because he's on the radio for 4 hours every day, or he was back in the 90s. Well, he didn't say anything, really, about the collapse of his marriage until the day it was in the newspapers. He didn't say anything about the negotiations he was having with the satellite radio company until the day he announced that he'd signed the contract. So for weeks and months, there's things going on in this guy's life that he's not sharing with us. But because he talks openly about his sex life and his small penis, we assume that he's being honest about everything. So when someone sits in front of a Scottish Parliament committee and says, I was incompetent, why are we assuming that they're being honest? Right? Now, again, I'm not speaking specifically about Professor Ian Gillespie. I don't know him. I've never worked with him. I've no interest in him. But this assumption that when someone shares an ugly truth, that it must be the truth, I think that's a hell of a difficult assumption. And if I was involved in accountability and learning lessons and standards, just because somebody says they're incompetent, I would not take them at their word. I would want more than that. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for listening, and just huge thanks to our clients who put their faith and trust in Emma and I here at Comsteria, and take everything we throw at them and are willing to change. I think that's the thing that we see so much of in our training, whether it's a writing workshop like I was doing the other day for a client in the whiskey industry, or presentation skills training, or media training, is, far from coaching people to keep things quiet and keep things hidden, we are supporting people through change, enabling them, encouraging them, to be honest and open and forthright. And, the clarity and the confidence and the power that comes when you step into that is incredible to see. And it contributes to a better society. And that's why we do it. So we know that we're different from the sort of clique of rent-a-gob pundits and commentators, but we enjoy being different, and we're very grateful to all our clients who take us up on that and come and work with us and make those changes. So thank you very much. The podcast will return again soon, and in the meantime, have a great summer.